I'm Cath. Welcome to my channel Made by Cath Craft, or welcome back if you're a regular viewer. Thank you very much for joining me for my latest episode of my midweek sewing chat. So it's really nice to be back today for another midweek chat episode. You might know last week I didn't pop on for a midweek chat because my children were on half term, which is really nice. We had a lovely week. And if you want to hear a bit about what we got up to in the week and what I was wearing from a handmade wardrobe, I did a video all about our week and what I was wearing, and I posted that on Saturday, so I'll link it up above in case you haven't watched that yet. But I talked in that video about what we got up to. We had a really nice busy week, and yeah, I got lots of things out from a handmade wardrobe that I talked about too in that video. But my children are now back to school today. It's Tuesday, and yesterday was October 31st, it was Halloween, and they had an inset day, which meant they were off school. The teachers were at school, I think, preparing for them coming back. So it was quite nice actually, because we could have an early dinner and then head out trick-or-treating, which they really love. We had a really nice evening, and I'll pop up a picture of them ready to go out in case you're interested in seeing. My son went as Harry Potter, my daughter went as a kitten or a cat. Neither of their outfits were homemade. My son has been wearing that Harry Potter costume the last few years. He just really loves it. So he's quite easy on the Halloween front. It still fits, thankfully. And that was a new outfit for my daughter, but yeah, I didn't make it. But yeah, that was what they were wearing. We had a really nice evening out trick-or-treating, but they're back at school today. The house is nice and quiet, so I thought I'd pop on and share with you a little bit about what I've been up to on the sewing front over the last week, and a few sewing plans too. And at the end of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I first got into knitting, because someone asked me to talk a bit about that. So if you're interested in that, I'll be including that at the end of this video. But yeah, before I start off sharing what I'm wearing today, I thought I'd mention, you can probably see I'm somewhere different in the house today. I got back from the school run this morning and found that one of the houses opposite having their carpets cleaned, I think. So there's a van at the front. It is really, really loud. So I tried recording in there, but I think you could hear the background noise from it in the room I usually record in, which is the front room. So I thought I'd come in here instead, and it's a little bit more peaceful, hopefully. So that is why I'm somewhere different. But now I'll start off this video after that bit of a long introduction by sharing with you what I'm wearing today. So today it was quite rainy on the school run, so I thought I'd wear a skirt and tights rather than jeans, because I always find if jeans get wet, they sort of stay wet much worse than tights. So I've got a handmade skirt and a ready-to-wear top. This top is actually a really, really old one. I had it for years and years, and it's actually a little bit short on the arm. I think if I'd made it myself, I'd have made it a little bit longer, as you can see, but I still really love it. It's got kind of a cable knit effect on it. That I guess I could knit something similar to this, but I don't know whether I'd be able to find fabric just like this, so I still really enjoy wearing this one. I like the navy colour. But yeah, the handmade skirt is the thing I was going to talk about, and this skirt I made using this pattern here, which is one of my favourite skirt patterns, particularly for winter, which is the Nina Lee Camden skirt and pinafore pattern. So it's a really cute sort of little A-line skirt pattern with these sort of feature patch pockets, and it's got an invisible zip at the back. And you can also make this pinafore version too, which I think is really cute and perfect for autumn as well. I've never made the pinafore, and it has princess seams, the pinafore, which is quite a nice feature, I think. And I think the zip goes all the way at the back. And the skirt and the pinafore are designed to be fully lined too, so it's quite a nice finish you get on this one. And I've never made the pinafore. I really like the look of it, but I just think I need to play around with the fit a bit. I probably need to do a toile because I'm a bit longer in the body. So I need to figure out exactly how long I need to make it, and just make sure the princess seams are right. So maybe at some point I'll make a toile and figure out the fit on that for me. But the skirt's been an easier make because I only had to figure out really the waist fit, and then the rest of it is quite easy because it's kind of an A-line fit, so it sort of skirts over your hips. But yeah, that's the pattern. In terms of size range, quite a lot of Nina Lee's patterns are now available in 2 size ranges. So they've got quite a good overall size range, but this one is only available in a size UK 6 to UK 20. And the largest size is for waist of 38 inches and hips of 47.5 inches. So it's not got the biggest size range on this one. And I've made a couple of versions of the skirt. And this is my original version I made, I think. And I think it's my favourite one too. I'll stand up a bit so you can see what it looks like. So it's got a cute A-line shape to it, and it kind of sits on my natural waist. And I'll turn around so you can see the zip as well, or hopefully not see too much. And I made it this really pretty corduroy fabric. It's quite a fine needle cord. I got it ages ago from Guthrie Garni. It's a Robert Kaufman corduroy, and I don't think they're stocking those at the moment, but if I can find them anywhere, I'll link them down below, because they're really nice corduroys, I find, because although they're quite fine, they're still quite substantial. So when I stood up, you can probably see it holds the shape of the A-line skirt quite nicely. It's not like a really lightweight drapey corduroy. And I made it in this really pretty rust colour. I'll stand up again so you can see. But I think it's a really lovely, rich colour for autumn, and I think it goes quite nicely with that navy top. In terms of sizing, I think I made the size 8, is it? I might have to actually have a quick peek at the pattern pieces, because now I'm doubting myself. You know, I think I might have actually, from memory, graded between the size 8 and the size 10. I made like a size 9 because my hip measurement sits right in between the size 8 and 10 of this pattern. The hip for size 8 is 35.5 inches and the hip for size 10 is 37.5 inches. So I think I made a straight size 9. I think I also, I think I went for the size 9 as it were on the waist too, because their size 8 waist is 26 inches and the size 10 waist is 28 inches. But I do find Nina Lee patterns come up fairly fitted, and I think I didn't want this waist to be too fitted because I knew I wanted to sort of be able to fit sort of snuggly jumpers underneath. So I think I might have gone for a straight size 9, grading between the 8 and 10. And I do find it isn't super tight fitting on the waist, this one, so there is plenty of room for me to, sort of pop in a jumper, which is how I often like to wear it, because it is kind of a cosy wintry skirt. And I always find Nina Lee patterns sew up really nicely. I think their instructions are really nice to follow. And this skirt is lined like the pattern intends. I'll show you a bit of the lining. For this lining, I used Q Pro Bemberg. I can't remember where I got it from, but I'll link it down below if I can find it. I think if from memory it might be Backstitch or Ray Stitch, a shop ending with stitch, but I'll find it and link it down below. And I hadn't worked with it before, but I'd read lots of good things about how it's nice and breathable. And a nice kind of slippery fabric for lining. And it is perfect for that, but it was quite tricky to work with. I did find it a lot more slippery than a viscose, and I was using my walking foot and everything, but it wasn't my favourite fabric to work with. But it is lovely and sort of slippery for lining. I'll sort of stand up so you can see a little bit of the lining. So it's quite nice and lightweight and breathable, it wasn't my favourite fabric ever to work with, but it has worked well for the lining on this skirt. So that's what I'm wearing today. It's a really nice pattern, the Camden skirt, and I'll put up a picture of me wearing it so you can see what it looks like on. It's definitely a wintry skirt, I feel. I don't think I'd ever make a summery version of this skirt, because I think the A-line means you need a fabric that has a bit of weight to it to kind of hold the shape of it nicely. So what does it recommend? Medium weight fabrics with body, like denim, lightweight wool, corduroy and velvet. So I think it's definitely a nice wintry skirt, and I really enjoy getting mine out at this time of year. Oh, and while I'm still on the subject of the Camden skirt and pinafore pattern, I thought I'd share with you how pretty the pattern envelope is for this pattern. I definitely love a paper pattern. I think Nina Lee paper patterns are some of my favourite ones because they're really beautifully illustrated. So I think historically Nina Lee has named all of her patterns after places in London, and then she's illustrated the pattern envelopes inspired by that place in London. So for the Camden pattern, underneath all the pattern information on the back, she's drawn a picture of Camden and London. So you've got Camden Lock and Camden Market and the Arts Centre, and then a riverboat and a river going through too, which I think is a really pretty illustration that kind of captures Camden there. And then around the edge on the front, she's drawn microphones and sort of rollerblades. So I guess it's kind of capturing Camden's party scene as well. So I really love that about Nina Lee patterns. I think going forward, she's only releasing her patterns in PDF format. So if you go on her website, you can only download in PDF. I think she moved to the States about a year ago and stopped producing paper patterns at that point. But you can still get the paper patterns online in quite a lot of places. I know Minerva have stocks of them still. So if you fancy getting your hands on a paper version, it's worth doing sooner rather than later, because I guess those stocks will run out at some point. And I do think they're really nice, the paper patterns. I always enjoy getting them out and having a little look at them when I am going to sew one of her patterns. So that's what I'm wearing today, but now I'll move on to sharing what I've been up to over the last week or so on the sewing front. And this week I haven't had as much time to sew as usual because my children have been off school. And generally I try to fit in sewing when they're at school. When they're a lot littler, I generally used to sew in the evenings because I had them at home with me all day, and they go to bed a bit earlier because they were smaller then, so I'd have a decent chunk of time in the evenings to do some sewing and get really stuck in. But these days now, my son is older, he's up a bit later, So by the time he goes to bed, I don't have as much time, and I don't have my own dedicated sewing area. I use this dining table here, so I have to get everything out. So I have to be in the mood to do that if I only have a small amount of time. So often in the evenings, I just do a little bit of knitting if I'm in the mood for something crafty after he's gone to bed. And like I say, I try to sew in the day instead. But I did manage to fit in a little bit of sewing over the last week or so. The first thing I knew I had to do was to finish my Sew Upcycle project. So I joined in the Sew Upcycle challenge, which is a challenge that's been run over on Instagram and on YouTube too. And I did a video talking all about it. I'll link it in case you want to check it out. I won't go into detail about it now. But the reveal date for that challenge was the 31st of October, so yesterday. So I knew I needed to finish my Sew Upcycle project for that date. So I finished that off. And I'm going to talk about my Sew Upcycle final finished garment in a separate video that I'm going to release this weekend. So I won't talk about it too much now, but that's one thing I did work on this week. And the other thing I worked on was to make my son a couple of new pairs of joggers, because now it's getting to that time of year where he's not wearing shorts anymore, he's into his joggers, and he loves the true bias mini Hudson pants pattern, and I needed to make him a couple more pairs of those because last year's pairs were starting to look a little bit tatty, so he needed a couple of new pairs. So that's the main thing I worked on over the last week. And to make those, I used some lovely fleece back sweatshirt fabric that I got from First for Fabrics. My son really wanted me to make them in quite a bright green colour because green is his favourite colour. And I thought because the weather's getting cooler, I'd go for some fleece back sweatshirt rather than some French terry fabric, so it'll be a bit thicker. And I thought it might make them a little bit more durable to last a bit longer too, because he does wear through the knees of them fairly quickly. He's very active, he's always dashing about the place, skidding along the floor, all sorts of things. So yeah, I thought maybe the fleece back sweatshirt will last a bit longer, so we'll see how that works. So I got some really nice fleece back sweatshirt fabric from First Fabrics in just the colour he wanted, and here are his mini Hudson pants. So I made two pairs. The other pair is in the wash at the moment because he wore them out last night trick-or-treating, or did he? No, I don't think he did. It must have been for the weekend. We must have gone for a muddy walk because it's been quite muddy and rainy here. Anyway, they are in the wash. I need to do a wash load today. But this is one pair that are nice and clean, so I can show you those. These are the mini Hudson pants by True Bias. He loves having the cord and the eyelets. I did a video recently, actually, a tutorial on how to add these eyelets in case you fancy checking that out. But he loves the eyelets and the cord, and he went for this sort of even brighter green colour for the cords. So here they are. The mini Hudson pants pattern by True Bias is a great pattern. If you've got kids or grandkids, I really recommend it. It sews up really nicely. They're quite a nice fit. They're quite a slim fit, which I think is quite a nice, it looks really nice, I think, and it works really well. My son and daughter both really like the pattern and find it really comfy to wear. I think for my son, I'm still making the age 7. I think the pattern goes from age 2 to 10, and my son's 9 now, so he's kind of getting to the upper age limit for the pattern. I think I traced out ages ago that a size age 7, and I haven't actually traced out a larger size because what I do each time is just add a bit of length to the bottom and then add a bit of width to the trousers just when I'm cutting it out. So it's a bit more of a relaxed method to cutting out, not totally accurate, but I find it works absolutely fine for my son and saves me having to trace out each extra size and use up the extra paper. So this is a pair I made for my son with alterations to make them longer and slightly wider. And the only other alteration I make is to make the cuff at the bottom quite a lot wider, actually, particularly with this fleece back sweatshirt fabric. It's not the stretchiest fabric ever. It's got a bit of stretch, but it's not really stretchy. So to make it easier for my son to get them on, I always widen the ankle. But yeah, I made 2 pairs of these and he's really happy with them. And I'll link the fabric down below. It's a really nice fleece back sweatshirt. It's not super thick, so he won't get totally overheated in it, but it's a little bit thicker than a French terry, I guess. So that is what I've been making this week. And I've also got in this video a couple of new fabrics to share with you. One, I know what I'm going to make with, and the other one, I'd like some ideas if anyone has any ideas, because it's a really pretty fabric and I want to make sure I do it justice. I've just realised I haven't got the pattern I'm planning to use for the first fabric I want to share, so I'm going to go and grab that and then I'll share that fabric. So I've got the pattern now because this is the fabric that I have set plans for. I know just what I want to make with this. And this fabric was gifted to me by Minerva in exchange for a post on their website. So once I finish making up the garments, I will write a post up with all the details and take some photographs. And once that's live on the website, I'll link it down below in case you fancy having a read at that point. And this fabric is one of their core jersey range. It's one of their organic jerseys, which they have, I think, in about 30 different colours. There's loads of really pretty colours on there, and the colour I went for is a navy blue. So here is my jersey fabric, and I really love it actually. It's really nice quality jersey fabric. I think it's 95% cotton, 5% spandex. It's got a good amount of stretch to it, and it's quite nice and lightweight, so perfect for what I wanted to make with it. And yeah, I just do love a navy blue colour. So what I would like to make with this jersey fabric is quite a basic t-shirt. The reason being, I've got a few old t-shirts that I've had for years that I got from Primark, and this is before I started sewing. And they're just nice, simple cotton stretchy t-shirts, and I wear them loads just under tops like this. They're perfect for winter layering. But some of them are getting a bit worn out, and also I've got them in a range of different necklines. I've got some that I'll show you, some with this sort of crew neckline here, as you can see, and then others with a scoop neckline like this. And I particularly like the scoop neckline, particularly if I'm wearing a jumper that has slightly a wider neckline. Sometimes the crew neckline, you can kind of see it peeking out underneath, but the scoop neckline is generally just a nice layering piece you don't really see, so it's nice and subtle. And I generally reach my scoop ones more, but I don't have so many of those, so I thought it'd be really nice to try and recreate this top and be able to make it myself. So that's my plan for this fabric. I'd like to make a scoop neck, sort of fairly close fitting, stretchy jersey top, and I think this fabric will be just right for it because it's lovely and stretchy and lightweight, so perfect as a layering piece. So my plan is to use this pattern here as a starting point to make the jersey top, and this is the Agnes top by Tilling the Buttons. It's a really nice jersey top pattern that's quite close fitting, so perfect for what I want, and it's got a scoop neck already. I think the scoop on the Agnes top might be a little bit deeper than the scoop on my existing top, so I might have a little compare, because I quite like to try and recreate just what I have already rather than too much of a scoop. I'll show you the Agnes top drawings though. This is kind of the version I'll probably be using as a starting point. This very simple jersey top, and I'm planning just to make it short sleeved like my little tops I've got. It'll be really easy to crop the sleeves off and then maybe just adjust the neckline slightly. And I might maybe size up maybe one size on this top because it is designed to be quite tight fitting. And the tops I have are tight fitting, but they aren't super tight fitting. So I might just go a little bit looser just to make it that bit more comfortable. So that might be my plan. So I think I'm gonna have a little play around with the Agnes top and try and use it to recreate these jersey tops. Are really a staple in my wardrobe for me. I'd love to have kind of a pro forma pattern I could just go to be able to make more of them. So yeah, that's what I'm planning to do. The Agnes top hasn't got the biggest size range ever. It goes from a UK 6 up to a UK 20. The largest size is for bust 44 inches, waist 38 inches. And I usually make the size 2. But yeah, I might maybe just sort of grade out, maybe size up to the size 3, a little bit larger for this version. I'm not sure, I need to have a think about it. But that is what I'm planning to do with this fabric. I've got 1.3 meters, which I thought would be plenty for a short sleeve top. And I thought if there's any left over, I might use it to make pants because this fabric would be great for making some pants too. So yeah, that's my plans for this fabric. I think it's a really pretty navy colour, and I think navy will be a perfect top to going under lots of my jumpers. And I think it'll be quite nice as a top on its own right with a pair of jeans too, if I wanted to wear it like that too. So that is my plans for this fabric. Oh, and I nearly forgot to mention, when the jersey fabric arrived, it also came with a really cute label included. And this is the label here. It's got the Minerva new branding M on the front of it in their new branding colours, and on the back it says #Minerva Maker. It's a really cute little label. If you've watched my videos before, you might know I'm not a big fan of putting labels into clothing that's going to be against my skin. When I was younger, my mum used to cut out all the labels from all my clothes because I was really fussy about how it felt on my skin, just the scratchiness. So I probably won't put this label into the t-shirt, but I think I'll try and find a different use for it. Maybe if I'm making a sweatshirt or a skirt or something that's not going to go directly on my skin, I think it'll make a really cute little addition to a garment. And I think Minerva do sell these labels in packs, and they're available for sale, so I'll link them down below in case you're interested. It's actually quite nice. It does feel quite nice and soft for a label actually, so, and it's quite cute. And I think the colours are really nice. So yeah, it was a nice little surprise finding that in the package along with my fabric. So the next fabric I wanted to share is another one that came from Minerva, and this is one I bought, and I got it on one of Minerva's VIP Craft Club days where you get extra money off if you're a Craft Club member. And it's a fabric that I've been admiring for quite a long time before that. I'd had my eye on, but I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go for it or not because it was on the pricey side. And then it came round to the Craft Club day, and I thought if I'm going to buy it, then now is the time while there's a bit of money off. So I did get it, and I'm really pleased I did. And I don't know when that was I got it. It was quite a while ago, but I don't think I've shown it on here before. I think maybe it must have arrived in a week when I wasn't doing a video or something like that. But it's quite a wintry fabric, I think, so I thought I'd share it now and yeah, maybe get some ideas on what I can make with it so I can hopefully sew it up and enjoy wearing it this winter. But I'll show you the fabric, and here it is. It is a fabric by Meet Milk, and I've sewn with a couple of Meet Milk fabrics before. They are on the pricey side, but I find they're really, really nice quality. And this one here is their Meat Milk Check two-tone Tencel twill fabric. It's a bit of a tongue twister. If I hold it up, I'm not sure you'll be able to see, but it's got the sort of twill diagonal lines going across it. And it's in this really, really pretty two-tone dark green colourway. They actually have some other really nice colourways of this fabric. I'll link it down below. I remember on the actual VIP Craft Club day, I was kind of really undecided until the last minute about what colourway to go with. I really like the look of, they had a sort of navy blue colourway too. And also a really pretty one that I think was called Old Rose, which was kind of two tones of dusky pink. So I was tempted by those, but I decided to go with the green because I think it was the green that originally caught my eye when this fabric came out. And I thought, I don't have a great deal of green in my wardrobe, but it is a colour I like, particularly a wintry green like this, so I thought it'd be a nice one to go for. And I think I got 2.5 metres maybe of this fabric because I wanted to make some sort of wintry dress with it. So yeah, 2.5 metres should be hopefully plenty for some sort of winter dress. And it's a lovely drapey fabric. It's got a lovely drape like you'd expect from a Tencel, and it's really nice and soft. It's got a lovely feel to it. But when it arrived, I was a bit surprised because it was actually a lot weightier than I was expecting. It really has got quite a decent amount of weight to it. It's quite a substantial fabric, definitely more substantial than, say, viscose twills I've sewn with before. So it's lovely and it'll be perfect and snuggly and cosy for winter. And I really like the feel of it when I'm feeling it against my skin as well. It feels really nice. But it was just a bit of a surprise that it was so weighty. And you'll see I've overlocked the edges. I wanted to kind of make sure I've looked after this fabric as well as possible. So I overlocked the edges in a random colour that happens to be my overlocker before I wash this fabric. So yeah, this is fabric. It's got a lovely drape but quite heavy. And my original thoughts on what I wanted to make with this fabric before it arrived was this pattern here, which is a Sudley Dress and Blouse pattern by Megan Nielsen Patterns. It's a really cute pattern, and I've made a couple of blouse versions of this pattern before, but I really like the idea of making a dress version because I haven't made this dress before. So the pattern's got this sort of cut-out keyhole detail, which you can either wear at the front or the back because this dress is reversible, and you can add little ties onto it too, like the model's got, and also an optional sort of Peter Pan collar. And it's got a sort of, the dress has got this gathered skirt on, and the dress is designed to be kind of like a loose fit baby doll smock style fit, I think. In terms of sizing, it's got a really good size range. Megan Nielsen Patterns come in a US 0 to 20 and then a curve range which is 14 to 30. But the thing that was holding me back about making this pattern, this fabric, is because it's kind of like fairly loose fitting and oversized. I thought in this heavy fabric it might just feel a little bit too heavy and a bit too much, and it might sort of drag it down a bit too much. So that's why I wasn't sure about going for that pattern with this fabric, because it is a bit more on the weighty side. My next idea for this fabric is another dress pattern, and it's this one here, the Davenport dress pattern by Friday Pattern Co, which is a really cute dress pattern. It's actually one I've made quite recently, so I probably talked about it recently, so I won't talk about it in too much detail, but essentially it's a dress that has a waist that's gathered in by this tie around the middle, a drawstring tie, and then it's got a ruffle on the bottom, a yoke at the back, and these little flutter sleeves and gathering at the neckline too. So it's a really cute dress, and it's another one that has a really good size range, and it goes up from an extra small up to a 7X, and the largest size is for bust of 60 inches. So that was my second thought, because I thought this fabric would look really cute as a Davenport dress in this check. But because the Davenport dress has quite a lot of gathering involved, again, because this fabric's a bit on the heavier side, I wasn't sure whether it would work so well, because my most successful Davenport dress I've made have been with quite lightweight viscose challis fabric, and I think that works really well. So I thought this fabric might just be, again, a bit too heavy for all the gathering. So I'm really not sure what to do with this fabric. I haven't got a definite pattern in mind now. So if you have any ideas on what you think might work well for this fabric, I would love to hear, because it's such nice fabric. I really want to do it justice, and I'd love to be able to sew it up sooner rather than later so I can enjoy it in winter, because it's really, really snuggly, and I think it'll be perfect for a really cute winter dress. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, let me know. I'm going to be racking my brains too, and hopefully between us we can come up with some ideas. So that is everything that I've got to share on the sewing front in this video. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit now about knitting, and particularly about how I got started knitting originally a few years ago. I've been asked that question a couple of times recently, and I do like to often include a knitting section at the end of these videos, so I thought it would be a good time just to talk a bit about that. And if you haven't knitted before and are maybe thinking about you'd like to try it, then hopefully it might be helpful to find out how I started. Or I thought you might just be interested to find out how I got started knitting anyway, just to know a bit more about me, I guess, in my crafting journey. So I started knitting when my son and daughter were quite small, And I was looking for some sort of hobby to do in the evening that I could do in the home, because I think I was getting to the point where I was watching TV and scrolling on my phone and not feeling very fulfilled by it, and I wanted to do something a bit more creative, because I do love to do creative things. I really enjoyed lots of craft when I was younger too. So my mum suggested maybe I'd like to try knitting. I think she might have tried to teach me when I was younger, maybe as a teenager or sort of a sort of younger child, and I hadn't had the patience for it. I just hadn't been able to get on board with it. So I was pretty much starting completely from scratch, had no knitting knowledge or knitting skills or anything. So my mum taught me a couple of basic stitches, basically the knit and the purl. And I got a pair of quite chunky knitting needles. These are they here. They're just plastic knitting needles, so they're not the most loveliest quality knitting needles to knit with. These days I much prefer a metal knitting needle. I feel the wool slips off it better, but these were absolutely fine for getting started. They're so size 7, so quite chunky, and I got some chunky wool to go with them. And I just spent a while practicing back and forth. I think I probably learnt to cast on about maybe 20 or 30 stitches, and then just went back and forth, just practicing my tension, practicing how the kind of you do the stitches, just with knit and purl. And then I had a go of doing knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl along, and just turned into kind of this very long scarf that wasn't particularly beautiful because the tension was a bit wibbly. But it's just a great way to start practicing with some wool that I could then unpick again at the end and use again for something else, which I think is what I did. So I just kind of gradually just worked my way through the steps, just getting more and more comfortable with them before I got comfortable with the idea of tackling an actual garment and learning how to maybe do some other stitches. And so that's how I got started. And then my mum got me this book here as a sort of starter knitting book, and it's called Nitty Gritty. It says Knitting for the Absolute Beginner, and it's by Anita Patel, and I'll link this book down below. I've got it on my Amazon favourites list, so I'll link it down below in case you fancy checking it out. And it's a really nice book, and what it does is it has lots of colour photographs of the kind of basic knitting stitches that can take you through those. So I knew a bit about the stitches before, but I found this book really helpful to refer back to when my mum wasn't here to kind of help me with the stitch. I could just look at this book and I use this. And it's got lots of little projects in there, and it's really great because the projects start off really simple and then gradually build your skills and add in different steps. So the first project is a chunky scarf, which I kind of already done before just by my practicing on my chunky needles. So I skipped that project and I started with the second project, which was baby booties, which are these here that are knitted in garter stitch. And they sort of started me introducing me to how you kind of increase and decrease stitches as well, and just generally getting a bit more confident with following knitting instructions, because when I'd been doing my original scarf I'd just been practicing without any instructions, just kind of trying different stitches of the knit purl and different combinations. So this book was great for getting me started using a pattern, and I basically just followed my way through the book trying out the patterns. I just used fairly inexpensive acrylic double knit wool, because I think most of the patterns in this book use double knit, so it's quite useful because you can just keep using the same wool and don't have to spend too much. And that is one thing I like about knitting. There's not a great amount of capital outlay you need to make. You just need to buy a couple of pairs of knitting needles, which aren't too expensive, and a bit of wool. So it's a great hobby to start off without having to buy loads of equipment. Like with sewing you need a sewing machine, which is quite a big expense, but I find with knitting you can start with a lot less money needed to spend on it. So I basically worked my way through some of the patterns in this book, whether they were relevant to me. I mean, I didn't have my daughter, I think by that point was maybe a bit too old for baby booties, so I think they ended up being used by a doll. And then what came after that? There's a hat, a zigzag scarf. I made that for my son. I don't think he wore it much, but I enjoyed sewing it for him. He enjoyed choosing the wool, and it was a great way to just learn some new skills. I basically worked my way through the book, but I didn't actually ever finish the book. I think I got to the point where I built up my confidence enough to then tackle what I wanted to tackle. And then I moved on to making some baby clothes for my daughter's, not baby clothes, dolls clothes, my daughter's dolls. And that was a kind of different style of pattern, a more traditional pattern, because the way this book sort of puts the instructions a bit more wordy and a bit more holding your hand through it. Then I moved on to the more traditional knitting patterns, and that took my skill levels up a bit, I think, learning to read those patterns and just developing that confidence too. So that was how it happened. It basically took a bit of time and patience and working through some projects that probably weren't the most useful projects ever, just to get my skills and confidence up to the point where then I felt ready to then tackle things like clothes for my daughter. And I started on some clothes for my daughter because they were quite small, so they didn't take up too much time or too much wool. And then eventually I moved on to making things for myself, and now I'm at the point where that doesn't seem too daunting, and I feel more comfortable with adjusting the sizing a bit and thinking about what tension to make if I want to make it a bit bigger or a bit smaller. So it's kind of just a gradual process, but it started off with practicing with some chunky needles on some basic stitches and then working my way through this book. And that was how I got started knitting, and I've now been knitting, I think, maybe my daughter's 6 now, so maybe about 5 years, and I really love it. There's nothing more relaxing than sitting down and working on a few rows of knitting. If I'm feeling down, it's a hobby I go to. I find it just really helps me forget about what I'm worrying about and really focus on the knitting. And I love that I can do it in front of the TV too, so I can kind of watch something with my husband and be with him, but also be working on something that keeps my hands busy and stops me scrolling on my phone. So that is how I got started. So I hope that helps a bit. If you have any questions, do add them down below. I can always include them in a future video. But that is probably a little whistle-stop tour of my start of my knitting journey, and it's a lovely hobby, so I definitely recommend it if you haven't given it a try. So that was the last thing I had to share in today's video, so I hope you enjoyed hearing a bit about the start of my knitting journey and also about what I've been up to on the sewing front and my plans for those fabrics. And if you did enjoy hearing all about that, then please do give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, then please do consider subscribing, and if you also press the bell icon when you subscribe, it means you'll be notified when my future videos come out. So I'll be back again on Saturday with another video, but in the meantime, I hope you have a really lovely week, and hopefully see you again soon. Thank you again for watching. Bye!